Hey everyone, welcome to the show. So, lots of updates to share about the presidential race. We're going to talk about how much Kamala Harris has raised, how we know for sure that the Republican Party is worried, which Democratic convention speaker made Trump suck his thumb. And I'm also going to share that one thing that could shake up this entire race. So, first, Kamala Harris has reportedly raised $500 million. This is since Joe Biden stepped out of the race. That is a staggering amount of money to bring in, especially in only 4 weeks. So that's bad news for Trump. And Republicans continue to speak out against him. This is something new. I mean, they definitely didn't do it in 2016. They did a little bit, and then they backed off when they realized that, yeah, he has this hardcore MAGA base. And then they didn't even bother in 2020. If you've been watching the Democratic National Convention, you may have seen someone who was on this show about a year ago. It's a man named Rich Logis. He is the founder of Leaving MAGA. He has a very compelling story about how he was very deep in Cult 45, how he found his way out, what it took. It wasn't just one single thing. It was like a series of events. So I'm going to leave a link to the interview that I did with him at the end of this video on YouTube, just in case you guys missed it or if you want to watch it again. We went really deep into this story. Like, I think we talked for over an hour or two. So, and Rich messaged me today and he said that he just founded a nonprofit. It's called Leaving MAGA. So for anyone who's interested in learning more about that movement, you can find the site at leavingmaga.org. I'm going to also leave the link in the description box on YouTube and the podcast if you want to check that out. Also, former Trump administration employee Stephanie Grisham spoke at the Democratic convention. She shared that Trump has absolutely no respect for his followers and why she's voting for Harris. So check this out.
I wasn't just a Trump supporter. I was a true believer. I was one of his closest advisors. The Trump family became my family. I spent Easter, Thanksgiving, Christmas, and New Year's all at Mar-a-Lago. I saw him when the cameras were off. Behind closed doors, Trump mocks his supporters. He calls them basement dwellers. On a hospital visit one time when people were dying in the ICU, he was mad that the cameras were not watching him. He has no empathy, no morals, and no fidelity to the truth. He used to tell me, "It doesn't matter what you say, Stephanie. Say it enough and people will believe you." But it does matter. What you says matter, and what you don't say matters. On January 6th, I asked Melania if we could at least tweet that while peaceful protest is the right of every American, there's no place for lawlessness or violence. She replied with one word: no. I became the first senior staffer to resign that day.
So that had to get under Trump's skin. He wants loyalty, like unmitigated loyalty, yet he gives none. So that had to have pissed him off. But he had a complete Trumper tantrum on his failing social media site about New York Governor Kathy Hochul, or Hochul, I think is how you pronounce it, and what she said about him at the convention. So she said in part, quote, "Donald Trump was born a New Yorker, but ended up a fraud, a philanderer, and a felon." So that apparently hurt little Donnie's fifis because he posted on his site that she was the, quote, nastiest speaker. And he said, quote, "Her total hatred and statements made about me had no bounds." Really? He has said the most horrific things about people, and yet that pushed him over the edge. Aw, someone's butt hurt. I get it though. I get, because this past month has been a huge reversal of fortune for Trump. Probably the biggest he's ever experienced. That's saying a lot. I mean, considering how many bankruptcies this guy has had. But the polls are continuing to shift in Harris' favor. And that means his chances of remaining a free man are diminishing. So I get why he's freaked out. Yesterday, the Center for Politics changed some of their predictions for the election. They previously listed North Carolina as lean Republican. They're now calling it a toss up state. They also say that Nevada, Arizona, Wisconsin, Michigan, Pennsylvania, and Georgia are all toss ups at this point. So that's awesome news for Harris. And then a group called Voters of Tomorrow, they polled voters under 30. And in some of these same battleground states, the results were not even close. So they surveyed 1,500 voters. These were 18 to 29-year-olds in Arizona, Georgia, Pennsylvania, Michigan, North Carolina, Nevada, and Wisconsin. And Harris beat Trump by 32 points. 2/3 of these respondents, by the way, said they're either likely to vote or certain to vote in November. So that is a big deal. You have to win the younger vote. Biden won it by quite a bit, but he was flagging, with them in his final days. So also, there was a national poll that was conducted by The Economist and YouGov. This was just this week. They just did this poll this week. Harris is beating Trump in that poll 46 to 43. Another company called Redfield and Wilton, they polled likely voters in several key states. They found that Harris has overtaken Trump in Pennsylvania and Wisconsin. She's now leading 46 to 44 in Pennsylvania and 48 to 44 in Wisconsin. In Georgia, Harris is tied with Trump at 46. That is a big change. That same company conducted these polls right after Biden dropped out. At that time, so before, the whole excitement started, before everybody started really looking into Kamala, Trump was leading Harris by 4 points in Pennsylvania and 5 in Georgia. So massive turnaround. And then they were tied in Wisconsin. Harris is also maintaining her lead in New Mexico and Minnesota by 6% and 7% respectively. Trump is still ahead, though, in Arizona in this poll and Nevada, but only by 1 point, so well within the margin of error. There's also a new semaphore poll, that was bad for Trump, showed Harris leading him 51 to 44 in Michigan, 50 to 44 in Wisconsin, and 48 to 44 in Nevada. All of those are outside the margin of error. And here's how we know things are not looking good for Trump. Think about this. How many Trump allies went to Chicago this week to spy on the Democratic convention? We know, because I shared with you guys, that my lumpy pillow man, Mike Lindell, was there, right? And he had his boozy buddy with him, America's defendant, Rudy Giuliani. And then Turning Point USA founder Charlie Kirk was there. He just showed up. I mean, those are just a few of the high-profile Trump humpers that we know of. How many others were there that we don't know of? I mean, you don't go stalk the competition when you're winning, right? You don't feel the need to do that. I mean, it's kind of like when I see a bunch of Trump cult members in my comment section. That's when you know. You know they're crying. You know that they're feeling the heat. They're worried. We also know Republicans are getting very nervous about their chances of retaking the Senate and maintaining their very slim majority in the House. So a Republican aide told the Hill news outlet, quote, "You can start to feel trepidation like with Arizona. You get a sense in talking to folks that it's not going as well as we hoped. In Nevada, it's not going as well as we hoped. There's a legitimate gripe that Trump is not as aggressive of a campaigner as he could be. He's going to run the way he's always run his campaign, and it's not a great feeling." And then a former Republican lawmaker told The Hill, quote, "There's no question Trump is going through self-immolation. He's killing himself. All swing states are won by independent votes, and he's alienated the independent vote almost every day with some foolish statement that marginalizes him. And as a result, the party and the majority of independents are educated women, and they're just turned off by the guy and what he says. Now, Trump had a lot to say about that. He was freaking out. He was saying in a rally, or not even a rally, he did this speech that was so bizarre. It was like no energy whatsoever. I don't know if you guys saw it. It was just this small room of people. And he was talking about, oh, I don't understand why women don't like me. I've done this and I've done that. It's like, yeah, and you've also sexually assaulted women. Proven, right? And accused by dozens of others. So it's not a big mystery, guy. Not a big mystery at all. You took away our rights. You took away women's rights to do what they want with their own bodies. Not a big mystery. I don't get what he doesn't get. And, one reason why all of these people are freaking out is because Harris' success is trickling down to other Democrats. Since Biden stepped aside, Democratic candidates have taken the lead or widened their lead in existing, down ballot races. So here's the number one thing, though, that could shake things up. And this is what I'm concerned about. Robert Kennedy Jr. might be dropping out and endorsing Trump. His running mate all but said it. She just said recently that they're considering their options because, yeah, their numbers have plummeted. And this is something that I've heard other people, other pollsters and pundits and experts talk about, that, yeah, as you get closer to the actual election, people start to go, do I really want to throw my vote away on a third party candidate who has no chance of winning? And some people come home to their parties, their respective parties, based on that. Also, we've seen the excitement, right? People didn't want to vote for Joe Biden. They didn't necessarily want to vote for Trump, but they didn't want to vote for Joe Biden either. They were tired of it. They didn't want to deal with these two same people, these two same candidates again. So a lot of people have already dropped Kennedy and come home to the Democratic Party now that it's Kamala, now that it's, Kamala Harris on the ticket. They've already moved over. So there's a lot of people that have already switched. They've already left him. So anyone who's left with Kennedy, anyone who is stuck with him, they're probably already against the Democratic Party. So, if he all of a sudden, because this is now what Kennedy is saying, he is now saying today that he may take a position in Trump's administration. And Trump is saying, yeah, I would be open to that, giving him a place in my administration. So Kennedy is now saying, I might go out there and endorse Trump, which is absolutely ridiculous given his family's history, given what he proclaims to stand for, how he's spoken about Trump, how he's called him a psychopath. I mean, I don't know. I don't know how that's going to play. But even if Trump only picks up a few votes from him, even if a few percentage points, that is enough that it could swing the election. Now, Kennedy could piss off his supporters because his message was that both sides were bad, right? His message was neither one of these parties is representative of you and what we want for this country. And so they both suck. And so we should just move on, go a different direction. So how is that going to play now if he's like, oh, actually, Trump isn't that bad. And, he has some good policies and I'm going to stick with him. And if you want a more pro-Israel ticket, you will not find it. For all these people out there, especially the young voters who are like, oh, Genocide Joe, and, we don't like what's going on in Gaza, which I don't either. But you will not find two more pro-Israel, pro-Netanyahu candidates than Donald Trump and Robert F. Kennedy Jr. So if you want things to get turned up to 11, right? This one goes to 11. This is going to get really bad. I mean, if you think that it's been bad already and how many innocent Palestinians have been murdered by Netanyahu, it's going to get way worse with the two of them. Also, the other thing is that, Kennedy, all of his supporters are major anti vax people. Trump is always bragging about his warp speed COVID-19 vaccine program. So, how is that going to work? I don't know. So, we'll see. It's a toss up right now on how that's going to play out. I mean, no one can say for sure until it happens, but we'll see. But I don't know if you guys caught it. This is an aside. If you have not watched the DNC, the National Convention, Democratic National Convention roll call from last night, you have to go watch it. It was so much fun. It was basically like being at one of my parties. Go watch it and you'll see, you'll go, I want to go to one of Gina's parties, because that's what one of my parties is like. Like fun, it's music, it's laughing, it's dancing. Yeah. So I enjoyed it. I watched it last night. I didn't watch the whole thing. I went through it pretty quickly because the YouTube video was up. I think PBS has the full video up from all of the states, but so much fun. Go check it out. It's on YouTube. Like I said, I think PBS has the full thing for all the states, but they played music for each of the states that correlated with that state. So like Minnesota, they played Prince, that kind of stuff. But yeah, blew the Republican party's counting out of the water. Their whole roll call was just like a major snooze fest compared to this. But anyway, that is it for today. I will let you know when I hear more. So hopefully more good news. Oh, I should mention too, DJT stock ticked up a little bit today. It was back up to over $24 a share. I haven't checked it this afternoon, but it rallied a little bit, nowhere near the peak of almost $80. So we'll see what happens. All right. Thank you all so much for watching and listening. Please like, please share, and subscribe. Please donate if you can. Love you all. Take care. Talk with you soon.